When I start looking at how did this come together and how did this come to be? How did I get exposed to this? And in my wildest dreams, I would have never dreamt that I'm in Africa 3 times a year. You know what I mean? Because initially my goal was when I came from the first one, I said every other year I'm going to be in Africa. And I have my kids that are sponsored. I wanted them to know that they mattered enough for me to travel to see them. And but God always over delivers, right? So I did a vision board event. I don't even remember, probably 6 or 7 years ago, and I had about 52 people, 52 adults in my house, and they're spread eagle all over the floor with cardboard and scissors and glue sticks and like little kids, and we're making these vision boards. But what I do at these events, we made it like a potluck. Everybody brought something, and we just had a great time. But when they're done with their boards, I ask everyone to get up and explain to us what's on the board.
Yeah.
Okay. And yes, generally you see the big house and the nice cars and the watches and the vacations, but 99% of the people that were there, and this has happened to me in every time that I've done a workshop that involves vision boarding, 99% of them, Vera, around all of the nice cars and all the material things, will say, but my real dream is to go back to my country and build a school. My real dream is to be able to, my aunt who is living on, fixed income, she's always wanted to buy her a new car. There's always this generosity, foundational vision that they have that is really the driving force. Society tells us we need to want the big house and the nice cars and the watches and the vacations, but fundamentally, I think we're all born generous, and we want to lead with generosity. It's just that we're bombarded with all this cultural
Yeah.
influence. But I noticed that the real driver, and that's the space that I want to be in. I want to be in the space where I am showing people that it's okay to want that,
Yeah.
and we're going to go out and figure out what that looks like.
Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Third Chances. I am so excited with today's guest because that's one of the best human beings I ever met in my life. Her name is Berta Medina. Berta Medina Garcia. I'm not sure how to address you properly, but if you follow this podcast for a while, you may remember her name because she was one of the first episodes when I first started back in November 2022. And if you want to go back and listen to about how we met and what kind of human being she is, I encourage you to look up that episode. It's number 3. And I named it, I'm either gonna get to the summit or die trying. And that's exactly who she is. Berta, I'm so excited to have you on again. I love talking to you, and you have so much to teach people. Thank you so much for your time.
Vera, thank you so much. I love spending time with you, and I always love hearing the way that we talk about each other behind our backs. And I always say,
Yes.
I love the way that you express yourself, but I feel like that's the mirror of yourself that you see in me. So thank you for the beautiful words, but I'm throwing them right back at you. You know how much I love and admire you, and I'm just so proud of how you're showing up in the world and being there for all of us constantly. So super happy to be here.
You have been there at the times that mattered the most, and absolutely generously without anything expecting in return. And those are really special people. And and I don't say that lightly, because you have even really dear friends that don't know what to do when something happens in life that change us and change the whole dynamic about what we're doing with ourselves. And you have been there no matter what. And you wouldn't take a shit from anyone. And I needed it at times. And you helped me move out of my, feeling sorry for myself stage.
Mhm.
And it's just, and I know you're doing it for others. And And that's the reason why I wanted to have you on again, because of course you did it again. You reinvented yourself. You did it again. You did it before when we talked about your transmission from having your own business to realizing that something was missing, and you will talk about that. But right now, you just took it out of the, out of the place with the from dreamers succeed to your epic next. And it's incredible idea, and I love it because it's so you. It cannot be done by anybody else. And I just wanted to say, I usually read some kind of bio at the beginning or a little bit to introduce you for who you are. And I know you would never, ever talk about yourself the way others talk about you. So I did some digging and I pulled out some testimonial that is few years old, but it so speaks of who you are. And it's from Deborah Workman. She herself coaches women in leadership, and she found you when she needed help. And she wrote, I have been fortunate enough to have worked privately with Berta and loved every minute of it. Speaks from my heart. Berta is an amazing connector of people, always wants to help, and has incredible skills to raise profile and inspire people to live outside the comfort zone. Berta helped me harness the power of storytelling in my presenting. I had a ton of content, but wanted to master the art of relating to my audience through my stories. Since working with Berta, I have crafted my keynote presentation, up-leveled my speaking skills, and increased my confidence in front of larger audiences. Berta helped bring out the best in me in so many ways. Her energy is contagious and her personality is magnetic. Berta inspired me to completely update my website, media kit, and make my branding and messaging across all my platforms clearer and more consistent. If you need someone to push you to achieving your wildest dreams and get you in front of your perfect audience, I highly recommend working with Berta. This couldn't be a better introduction to you as a person, because we went through you coaching, you writing multiple books, which I would like to mention eventually if we have time. But also you came up with the greatest idea to help starting speakers to develop their media kit and develop their speech and being on the stage. And through that, I met a lot of wonderful people as well. You have been there and you have this 10th sense of what is needed the most. And so again, Berta, love you to pieces. You are incredible human being. And if you are listening to this, you are in for a treat.
Thank you. Thank you, Vera. That was very sweet.
Oh, absolutely.
And I love Deborah. Deborah has really just stepped into a space, and she's a beautiful human being like you. And she's coaching at a high level. She's speaking at a high, I mean, she's just a wonderful, wonderful human that I'm blessed to call a friend now. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. You know, I have met you when I had probably a worst experience with a coach. And it's very interesting industry because there's a lot of wonderful people that can really bring you up with little down. Because I remember we were talking together and you kind of said in our previous episode, nobody needs a coach. And it's true. But if you want to be Magic Johnson, you can be average and you can get there by yourself. So people who are driven to excel, they look for tools that will help them to get there. And I remember finding somebody who seemed to be resonating. I didn't know how to evaluate it for myself. And it was very negative experience for me. And it stopped me from approaching anybody for a long time because it was also a very expensive lesson. And so when we met, I experienced what it means to be a coach. It was whole another level. So, and every coach has a coach if they want to be good. So you eventually started coaching other coaches, which I have seen those as well, trying to monetize on, whatever was missing in this industry. That was not you. You were there generously helping others to succeed, elevate others as well. And
Mm.
so this continuation, this has always been your path ever since
Mm.
you decided to drop everything and climb Kilimanjaro,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So I see it as a completely natural continuation of your path, but tell me what caused this change.
I think the last time that we spoke, I was like right thick in the middle of newly divorced. I had just moved to Tennessee. We had sold the house. I think we recorded our episode. I was living in the RV. I
I
just
think
said I'm
so.
going to
Yes.
travel. Yeah, I'm going to travel for a year. And home base was Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which was a lot of fun. But my kids were still. My daughter was in Alabama. My son was in Florida. So I was just traveling a lot to see them and then doing a lot of other things. So what happened, Vera, is there was this pause, after a 35-year marriage. I had gotten married very, very young. And I remember that it was almost like there was this whole different human evolving that I didn't know what to do with her. Even though I had, as you mentioned, I had sort of evolved in so many ways out of my comfort zone, even while I was still married. But now it's like, who is this Berta who is not wife of George and daughter of my
Yeah.
mother, who I had just lost a few months before? And so there
The
was this
identity,
this
right?
yeah,
Identity
the
crisis.
identity is
Yeah.
totally
Mm.
shifted. It's like, now what do I do? Now I'm by myself. I don't have children to take care of. I don't have a million responsibilities. So I was like unencumbered and untethered, but at the same time, and I didn't realize it then because of course I'm busy traveling. I had told my ex-husband I'm going to travel for a year, and then 2 years in, he's like, "Hey, are you going to stop ever traveling?" And I said, "Well, when I'm finished, and I'm just not finished yet."
Yeah.
Um, and I think what happened is, now looking back, because I almost feel like in this third year is when I really came back to, by the grace of God, all of my business was referral, everything was word of mouth, but I wasn't doing anything to promote myself in business. It
Mhm.
was just coming
I
organically
know that.
because of
Yeah.
the foundation I had built, that God had built for me. I take no credit for that. But I knew that there was something missing, that I needed to reinvent what was happening. So I'm in my 11th year, Vera, and I realized that the evolution of me coaching small business owners to then working predominantly with coaches and speakers, because I knew what I needed as a
Yeah.
coach. I knew that I needed help building my coaching business.
Yeah.
I knew that when I started speaking, I needed help building my speaking business. And it wasn't out there the way that I wanted to
Yes.
do it. So
Yeah.
I just created it, how
Which
they
is the
say.
brilliant filling the spot that is needed. Exactly.
Exactly, exactly. It's
Yeah.
just filling the need, and that mother of invention sort of little scenario that we hear about all the time. I just wanted to create what I know that I needed.
Mhm.
And it's been a huge blessing. But then that evolved into doing CEOs and founders, and then doing a lot of corporate work, which was it's all been very rewarding.
Mhm.
Corporate work is great, very lucrative, but very, you're in a contract for a while. And not that I don't love that, because I've made some great friends in that space, but in that pause, and I'll call it a pause, I really got to reflect on what was missing, even working with success veterans and life pioneers and people that were willing to escape their comfort zone. And I came up, Vera, with this thing that we check off all the boxes, right? And I think at 46, one day I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, "Who the hell are you? And what have you done with Berta?" Right? I had built a very successful business. I had raised my two kids. They were, living on their own. I was in a 26-year marriage then that I loved him, but neither of us were paying much attention to. Both of our moms lived with us, so
Yeah.
we were
They were
finishing
taking
raising.
care of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I had checked off all the boxes that cultural norms and societal norms deemed that you need to check off, but I'm like, this can't be it, God. This can't be it. I feel like there's a sense of me that is the generosity piece, even though I'd always volunteered and done things. I need a little more. This is
Mhm.
not, it's not that it wasn't exciting enough. It was just I had this soul, I call it soul boredom, right?
Yeah.
Um, Everything on social media looks great and all the family pictures look great and everything
Yeah.
looks beautiful. But I was like, yeah, this is not what I had in mind as far as where's the impact? How do I serve in big ways? And it got me to thinking, Vera, over the last 3 years, as I said, that a lot of these founders, CEOs, like I said, these success veterans, they've done it all. They've built amazing businesses,
Yeah.
reached tremendous levels of success according to all those norms that we're used to,
Yeah.
and raised their families, but they're left with now what? So my invitation before your Epic Next came was, if we're going to work together, at some point you're going to end up with me on a mission trip, right? So that was the caveat. So I've had the blessing of, since I travel a lot on missions, I'll invite, ex-clients or current clients, and they'll come with me. And I just want to expose them to what is possible.
Yeah.
Like, you have all this success and all this money, and it's great to leave that legacy for our children, but there's a lot more to do in the world. So if they maybe don't connect with that particular mission, they might come back and do their own thing, but it but
Yeah.
it opens their eyes to something that perhaps they hadn't had the opportunity to be exposed to before.
Yeah.
And for me, it's very selfish because when I'm out there in Kenya or in South Africa, wherever, and I get to see it again through their fresh eyes for the first time, it's
Yeah.
like a total, I mean, it's like a thrill for me.
It's
So
like seeing world
yeah,
through kids' eyes. Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's just the most beautiful thing because I remember what it was like to be out there for the first time
Yeah.
and think, oh my gosh, there's so much to do out here.
Uh,
And as much as there is to do in our backyard, I mean, I volunteer locally. My goal is always 1,000 hours a year,
mhm.
um, because I know that there's a lot to do. But if I can be in Africa 3 times a year, I'm going to do it. You
Yeah.
know,
I remember it
so
was your dream from the young age for some
yeah,
reason, and then you made it. But this is
yeah,
something that it's absolutely uh, true because I have met very, very successful people and they seemingly check it all on a paper, but there was something missing. And that's probably what you came to conclusion. And some people are just comfortable where they are and feeling like I have done it all. But if there is that drive to the next thing missing, it starts being the comfortable boredom, like you said.
right,
There's
yeah,
nothing driving you forward. And
yeah,
and I think that's you tip into wonderful, wonderful space that is so needed because these people have done it all. They have been successful, but to have them face that it's not always there, and there are people like you that can do so much good with their time, with their money, and give themselves the sense of purpose,
yeah.
because the gratitude is the one of the biggest thing in our own psyche. it's
Hmm.
it's incredible. It matches all together while you're helping as well, much on a much bigger scale
Right.
to missions that you are involved for years. That's
Yeah. And I
brilliant
and
idea.
I yeah, and I love how you said it, Veer, because I think that's the thing. There's this passion piece, and I'll share a quick story so that you can see how, and it really has been God over the last 11 years that I've been doing this, how things seem to happen. And hindsight is always 2020, right? And we can go back and connect the dots. But when I start looking at how did this come together and how did this come to be? How did I get exposed to this? And
Mm.
and in my wildest dreams, I would have never dreamt that I'm in Africa 3 times a year. You know what I mean? Because initially my goal was, when I came from the first one, I said every other year I'm going to be in Africa. And I have my kids that are sponsored. I wanted them to know that they mattered enough for me to travel to see them. And but God always over delivers, right? So I did a vision board event I don't even remember, probably, 6 or 7 years ago. And I had about 52 people, 52 adults in my house, and they're spread eagle all over the floor with cardboard and scissors and glue sticks and like little kids. And we're making these vision boards. But what I do at these events, we made it like a potluck. Everybody brought something and we just had a great time. But when they're done with their boards, I ask everyone to get up and explain to us what's on the board.
Yeah.
Okay. And yes, generally you see the big house and the nice cars and the watches and the vacations, but 99% of the people that were there, and this has happened to me in every time that I've done a workshop that involves vision boarding, 99% of them, Vera, around all of the nice cars and all the material things will say, but my real dream is to go back to my country and build a school. My real dream is to be able to, my aunt who is living on, fixed income, she's always wanted to buy her a new car. There's always this generosity, foundational vision that they have that is really the driving force. Society tells us we need to want the big house and the nice cars and the watches and the vacations, but fundamentally, I think we're all born generous and we want to lead with generosity. It's just that we're bombarded with all this cultural influence. But I've noticed that the real driver, and that's the space that I want to be in. I want to be in the space where I am showing people that it's okay to want that.
Yeah.
And we're going to go out and figure out what that looks like. For some people, it might just be, listen, I've never dared to even go on a hike because I'm afraid of snakes. Well, let's go. It's how do we start stretching the boundaries of that comfort zone? Because once you start stretching it, you're just going to keep stretching it.
How did you discover it in yourself? When did it started with you willing to not be compacted with the norms and boxes? You knew that you need to expand.
Yeah, I think it was just that mirror moment, right, that I described earlier. And I think for me, Vera, Cuban Catholic women are raised on guilt and café con leche. That's just the bottom line.
Yep.
So we're not supposed to go out and do things. Now, I had a vision board hanging in front of my toilet for 7 years that had a giant marquee that said volunteer. It had Mount Kilimanjaro. It had Maasai women and children. And I just wanted to be able to go to Africa and serve. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why I had this fixation with Africa since I was a little girl, especially Kenya. And then come to find out 20 years later that my roots, my, 5 generations from me, my great grandfather was a slave who was taken from, what is now the Republic of Benin, Doheny to Havana Harbor, whatever. So there's this weird bloodline connection, maybe, and I don't mean weird in a bad way. I mean it in the best way. But I think that it was just a moment, and it was like if God breathed into me this sense of, okay, now you have the awareness. What are you going to do with it? And I thought, okay, I got to start looking to see what I do with it. And then he just started putting the and I think, Vera, this happens to everyone. The opportunities come. If we're not open to it, we don't even see them.
Yeah.
Our radar is just not there. We're just not paying attention, or we're not even wanting to pay attention to the radar. So when this opportunity for this mission trip in 2014 came, that was to climb Kili. We were going to spend 3 weeks in Kenya and Tanzania and sponsor a Maasai child and work with Maasai women and children. And it was just that daring to say yes to that. I didn't know how I knew how I was going to pay for my trip. I was going to pay for what I had to sponsor the child I didn't want to fundraise because I didn't want to ask people for money. But it was for him. And it just became like, I just started saying yes to everything.
But the fascinating point was that you agreed to climbing Kilimanjaro without any prior training or being overly athletic at all.
Yeah.
And this is just that would stop most people just based on fear.
Yeah. And I think what happened for me, Vera, was that um and you said it right. It was a I just had to bring with me a summon or die attitude. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and you know what I think happened to me? I stopped being afraid of what the old Cuban ladies were going to say. I know my mother was worried. I know my mother-in-law was like, what the hell? Are you gonna, you're gonna leave? I knew, George had his apprehensions because of the danger of the climb and all that stuff. And I was just like, my kids are raised. My granddaughter was 2.5 years old, and I'm thinking, how cool if she could see that her grandmother at 47 at the time,
Yeah.
um, was just willing to take a chance, and more than anything, I feel like we have this responsibility for people around us that are watching, right? Um, and I'm not doing it because I want people to see what I'm doing it. I'm doing it because once you stretch yourself that first time, you're going to keep stretching yourself, Vera,
Yeah.
because nothing is going to taste as good as what that stretch feels like.
That achievement
So
that you
yeah, yeah.
overcross.
And
Yeah.
even I think even more than the achievement, it's the courage to raise your hand and say yes. Once you've raised your hand to say yes, I mean 90% of the work is done, right?
Yeah. This
So so
is.
yeah, that I think that's what hit it for me.
It's funny. It reminds me of moments of my own life when I realized when I first moved to America. I
Hmm.
came from Czech Republic, which was under communism most of the time.
Yeah.
So my whole first part of life was under communism, just like yours and your family.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
what you learn in that regime is do not stick out. Put your head down. Don't catch any attention on you because you may get in trouble or your family will get in trouble. So shut up and blend in, which is
Hmm.
of course the opposite of what you need to do when you want to
Yeah.
have a successful business. You need to stand out
Yeah.
so your customers can see what you do. And I
Yeah.
think what I remember when I first came to America, and my husband lived here before, 20 years before
Hmm.
that, he was political refugee, but he
Hmm.
already experienced what America is about. And so he knew but he could also relate to what I
Yeah.
was raised on. And I
Yeah.
remember him telling me, well, when you're trying to apply for a job, you cannot be a check, like maybe, I'll try. And that is
Hmm.
not gonna convince anybody. You have to stand for what you believe, even if you don't know exactly what that job requires and you think you are not qualified, you will learn. You are smart enough to learn.
Hmm.
But you have to prove yourself to your employer that you have what it takes. And
Love that.
believe me, I didn't have it in me. I did not have it in me. And this is 23 years ago now. And I remember I walked into one of the best bosses I have in my life, into his office, completely by chance, being introduced by somebody. I knew nothing, zero about that industry. And I have been 1 year in the country. I didn't know the market. I didn't know the industry. I didn't know the industry jargon in English. And by chance, this was a company with some of the most knowledgeable salespeople in the business. And I'm talking about wine business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just loved the dynamic of the company. I loved the guy, what he stood for. I linked with him immediately. He resonated with me. And I
Hmm.
took that chance. Like you're saying, I was unafraid. I knew I was passionate enough about this subject to learn and learn quickly.
Hmm.
And I was never competitive, but at some point I felt like I'll show you. All
Yeah.
these guys, because this was men industry,
Right.
and
Right.
all these guys were snobby, well, most of them, snobby, ego driven. I know so much, and what does she knows? And she's blonde with
Hmm.
accent. But it just
Yeah.
reminds me what you said, because it was that moment when it's like, I'm going to show you, not like show off, but I'm going
Right.
to
Right.
prove myself. Not that I
Yeah.
need to prove myself to you, but I will accomplish
Yeah.
despite everything that's against me. And that was the spirit. That was just, and it drove me really high and really
Yeah.
quickly, because once you find that in you, nothing can
Hmm.
stop you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that story, Vera, because here's what's most interesting is that courage to step out of your comfort zone, because I'm sure it was very uncomfortable for you,
Oh yeah.
right? That courage to step out of your comfort zone sort of fuels this wheel in you, right? That you just have to keep going. You have to
Yeah.
keep going. And then the more you succeed, the more you want to succeed in whatever success means to you. But
Yeah.
it really is not about proving anything to them. It's
That's
like
right.
I'm proving it to myself.
Yeah.
And when you can change the narrative in your mind from proving it to them or doing what people expect you to do, or from people that I just wanted to prove that I could do it. At
Yeah.
47 years old, climb a mountain when I grew up in Miami at sea level. That courage that you had to, number one, walk into the office without knowing what to expect, but really to be willing to start. And I know that you really advanced quickly and became a tremendous leader in that space. But it would have never happened if you hadn't had the courage to get out of that,
If I
the
was my
comfortability.
old Czech self, I would be like,
Yes.
I don't think I can. No, I don't know anything about it. And I
Yeah.
ended up
Yeah.
teaching about it. It's just,
Yeah.
it's, and it's a different drives because what you mentioned before was also to find in you to be a good example to your family.
Mhm.
I mean, you cared not about how others see you, but
Mhm.
what you are showing them, how to
Yeah.
live life, because you have seen it in your mind. I remember we were talking about how strong women in your life were.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's something that you were born with to probably like, don't be afraid. This is
Yeah.
what it takes. Just don't screw everything. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
we have one
Yeah.
life, and it's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How is it linked to happiness?
How is it linked to happiness? What a great question. I think, Vera, um that there is a sort of a formula ingrained maybe in our DNA, that we are really built to achieve. And I don't mean achieve in the way of checking off our boxes, but we are really built to level up. And I think, especially if you have faith, where that God don't make no junk, and what did he put me here, and he's going to continue to show you ways to that you can continue to level up.
Mhm.
um I think that there's a link, because you're proving to yourself that you can. So it's not the achievement that, hey, I did it.
No, yeah,
It's the what we just talked about, the daring to do it. So I think
yeah,
what happens is, especially when you release that tension of worrying about what people think, and I think the older we get, Vera, the less we give a shit, right?
true.
Which is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful place to exist. I think that we start to strive for independent happiness.
Yeah,
Like, my thing is always, I want to be independently happy. My happiness cannot depend on who I'm being to anyone, even to my children. And my main goal in life is to make sure that my children are happy. I
yeah.
know that I can't make them happy. I
Exactly,
I I
exactly,
needed to equip them with the tools, and show them by example what it looks like to me. Happiness looks
exactly.
very
Yeah,
different to everyone else.
yes.
But I think that if within my own realm of what happiness means to me, which is if I'm serving, and I always say, people say, "Oh, you're always out there doing," and I say, I'm the most selfish person in the world, because I feel sometimes that I do that because it makes me feel so good. And that's what's so
But that's what's in the
backwards, right?
Bible, man, Berta.
Yeah, so I think that the happiness has to come from whatever it looks like for you. But I wish people would just stop trying to live the happy that they think people expect.
Yeah,
It just you have to define what happiness means to you. And usually there is a link between that stretching
yeah,
and overcoming the doubt, and just pushing yourself. There's a lot of happiness and courage. And I think there's a lot of courage and happiness, because a lot of times people may not want to even try to be happy, because they've either been hurt before, or they think they don't deserve it, or whatever that may look like. and they sabotage themselves. I mean, we've had this conversation and we hear it all the
Oh,
time.
yes. Oh, yes.
There people try to sabotage their happiness because they're afraid to feel it. You know what? I want to feel it. If I only feel it today, I'm going to feel it today and I'm going to enjoy every minute. But I think one of the most important things is to figure out independently what happiness means to you. Just stop worrying about everybody else because they're not really thinking about you as much as you think.
Yeah.
They really don't care.
And I think this goes to core to your new idea that you are building now, because even the most successful people, they reach all the career ladders and they achieved all the awards and they have all the money in the world that they can think of, and still feels like, well, what now? There's emptiness in it. And you are
Mhm.
showing them that maybe that's not the right destination for your personal joy, for your for the field to impact others, to be a
Mhm.
source of good in the world. And we all know that from Christmas, it's so much richer to give than receive, and to see joy
Yeah,
in somebody else's
yeah,
eyes. And I
yeah.
know that, successful CEOs and people in a high level are very philanthropic already.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
sometimes they don't always see it with their own eyes.
Yeah,
Who is on the receiving end, how their
hmm,
life really looks like. And
yeah.
the fact that you will bring them there, and I'm
Mhm.
sure that's not the only thing that you do. It's a whole new dimension that they never possibly had idea existed because they were so busy with their
Mhm.
careers.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
a new dimension of life that must bring complete happiness of just being able to do that.
yeah, yeah.
Like, you are
And
not done until you're done, right?
exactly. And I think, Vera, what I've noticed too that happens is that we have this sense of taking things for granted, right? And there's a level of complacency. Are you kidding? I've already, done that and been there
Mm-hmm.
and even this is a little personal, but I'll share when my husband and my husband is amazing. You've met him, my ex-husband. I got to start calling him my baby daddy or something, because I
Mm-hmm.
can't get used to calling him my ex-husband. But
Yeah,
um, amazing, great person, and he's very successful. And
yeah,
when we were in counseling together, I remember that our counselor one day just sat us down. He's seen the divide, and we always got along. It wasn't that we weren't getting along, but he said, George, where are you? I think he was like 52 at the time. And he said, you know what? I built my business. I've raised my kids. I just want to come home and
yeah,
relax and go on vacation, on a motorcycle. He rides Harleys. And I just want to, relax. I don't
yeah,
want to retire, but I want to relax. And Ray is our therapist name, and he looks at me and he says, Berta, what about you? And I think I was 47 or 48. And I said, dude, I'm just getting started.
yeah,
And he says, this is the canyon
yeah,
between what it is. And
yeah,
he said, I can't expect her to come even and meet you in the middle.
yeah,
So we started working on compromises and things. And, it was a very beautiful way of painting a picture. But I think what happens is that we get to that level, that plateau of complacency. And you know what? I've got, you know, 42 good years left in me. What am I going to do with it?
yeah,
And it's just I want to do things, I put a post the other day about Jane Goodall. She's going to be 90 on April 3rd. And that woman still travels like over 200 days a year because
mm,
she's so passionate about her mission,
yeah,
that it fuels her. So I think that's the thing. If you find something, and I think what I was getting at is that when we take people and travel abroad and see what's out there, or even in our own backyard, we get back to that gratitude in a way that we haven't felt it before, because
yeah.
all these things that we took for granted, like everything tastes different when you come back from seeing what the rest of the world lives like.
This is brilliant, brilliant point. And I remember you telling me about how when you were saying it, and I know your husband is a great guy and very successful, nothing wrong with him,
Yeah.
absolutely nothing. But when you were saying it, it felt like that image I have one scene with the woman dragging, being chained to like big stone that was dragging her back when she wanted
Yeah.
to get out. And it's not about your love. It was about
Right.
the he felt like he had done everything that was expected of
Mhm.
him and
Right.
wanted to have his time to rest, which nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
were the opposite. There was no
Mhm.
way that you can come. It was really dragging you down. You could have done so much things, but you were confirming to that relationship in order to save it. And I can totally relate to this. This is
Yeah.
fascinating to me. I
It's super.
also think the difference was that he saw himself more. You saw how you can help others more. And that's a
Yeah.
big difference, even when you bring somebody to your missions now, because they
Yeah.
have built that career. And I'm not saying it's selfish, absolutely not, because
Right.
they were doing it to be successful, to take care of their family, to build a
Mhm.
business that is impacting tons of people. But
Mhm.
it was still about them. And when you
Yeah.
start being about others, it's a
Yeah.
whole different ball game.
Yeah. And that's why, Vera, I think it's so interesting how we can't, and you even said it, that whole dragging situation, right? The picture that you painted was very it just hit me, right?
Yeah.
Because he was always very supportive of what I wanted to do, financially supportive, and like he never said, no, you can't go. I mean, he might not have
Yeah.
liked it, but he always like allowed me to do it. I just didn't want to do it alone,
Yeah.
right? So we've been divorced almost 3 years now. He's already been to Africa once with me, and we're going again in May. So
Wow.
the whole time we were married, he would say, "No, no, no, I'm not going to go to Africa," and then
Oh,
he went and
I
fell in love
love
with
that.
it. And he's very supportive of the ministry and has like a bunch of sponsored kids, and he's doing what he can, but he just fell in love with it. So I think what I learned from that was that we just have to do it, and whoever needed that, it's gonna just raise your hand from your example and want to
Eventually.
come along.
Yeah.
So that then it removes that whole pressure of, but I want you to do it. I want you to see it. I want you to, and I think it again, that was a God thing. I don't think it was anything intentional. It was just like okay, that anybody doesn't want to. I'm gonna do it anyway
You know,
until
this is
God
this
gives me
is
the ability.
this is amazing because I'm just thinking in my head. So you divorced him after so many years, and now you are in process to unintentionally changing him anyway.
No, and the thing is, Vera, that and he's such a good man. Like
Yeah.
he's just and we have a beautiful relationship. Post divorce, which I think is really good for the kids.
Yeah.
It's really good for the grandchildren. But it was like and I love that you said that because I didn't want to change him. I just wanted to be okay with 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 me changing,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and you can be okay with it or not be okay with it, but I was gonna try to fly, and and I just didn't want, and not that he stood in my way, but we have a lot of pressure and cultural
Yeah.
pressure, especially when we come from the places that we come from, and and I just didn't want to be subject even to the guilt of not playing by the rules,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We do that guilt will mess with us all
Yeah.
day. And I
And I
just
didn't
didn't want.
mean entirely changing because I know we cannot change other human being, but changing
No,
his
but I know what you mean.
example. You
Yes,
showed
yes,
him
yes.
what it could be if he
Yeah.
just let in a little bit.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So that's been a lot of fun to see. Some people are like, "What is going on with you two?" And we're like, because nobody's used to
Yeah.
divorced people getting along. And I'm like, guys, you can divorce kindly. I mean, it doesn't have to be all.
Yeah.
Um, but Vera, I think that and I think that as humans and as people who have been blessed to put in a position where God removes the element of fear, right? And maybe the people are, my granddaughter, I was talking to her the other day, and she says, Mima, you're not afraid of anything. And
Yeah.
I said, no, I'm just not going to let being afraid of anything stop me from doing it. If I jump out of a plane and I hit the ground running, you know what? I've lived enough for 2 lifetimes. I'm not afraid of dying. So it removes the fear of trying new things
Mm.
and doing things that people might think are crazy. And I just think it's Tuesday, you know?
I know
Like,
you
what's the
are
big
embodied.
deal?
There is one thing that I want to bring up, if you could please refresh. I have heard you speaking in an event that was Meg's event in Miami. And
Mm,
during that speech, I heard some stories that I was already familiar with. And there was one story that I particularly enjoyed. And I don't want to try and recall it because I think you will know exactly what I mean when I said she was so crazy, guys, that she decided to get her pilot license
yeah,
just because why not, right? Like you
yeah,
said, it's Tuesday. And so, but there was one example that you gave when you were training to land the plane by yourself for the first time, and that freaking fear that must be there because, I mean,
yeah,
you are flying with instructor and suddenly you are by yourself. And what did you
yeah.
do and what it meant for how did it affect you what we're trying to do in life?
Yeah. So, and I love sharing this story, Veer. So I love that you're such a good listener and you have a memory like me, and you remember things.
Because
So,
it was
so I was,
effective, very
yeah,
effective.
I,
Yeah.
I was working on my private pilot's license. So at about 30, 35 hours, you're ready to solo. Okay, means you're in the plane by yourself. You can take off. You're going to come down one of two ways. You're either going to land or you're going to crash, but you're going to come down eventually. So I knew that we were nearing that time. And it's not that I didn't feel ready, it's just that there's a lot of comfort in knowing that there's an instructor next to you who has access to the pedals and the brakes and the
Yep.
rudders. And so we're coming in, we're doing touch and goes, which is basically you're landing, you're going up, getting back in the pattern, landing, going up. And I knew we had done that I used to go 2 days a week before going into the office to Miami Airport, and that's where I would practice, be out there for 2 hours. Um, so I'm coming in for a landing, and I see that Dave, my instructor, is like staring at me instead of looking at the runway. Because if something goes wrong, he needs to see the runway so he can, step in. And I am freaking out, Vera. I am just so nervous. So I come in for the landing and super nervous. And he says, okay, take it back up. I get in the pattern. So when I'm coming back in for my next landing, he says, I want you to hold the yoke with your thumb and your forefinger. And I said, what now? And he said, just hold the yoke with your thumb and your forefinger. And I said, dude, you're like nuts. And he goes, trust me. So I did because I knew he was there and he was going to be paying attention. So, and I came in Vera. I had always landed, they say any landing that you walk away from is a good landing.
Yeah.
But this was the smoothest landing I had ever done in my 30 hours of training. So I land, I'm kind of a little like, hey, that wasn't as bumpy as the other one. So I take it back up, whatever. So when we get back in the pattern, he says, I was watching you when you were landing the time before, and you were white knuckle, like holding on to that yoke for dear life.
Yeah.
And he goes, and what happened was that you were not allowing the plane to help you in the landing. You wanted to control the yoke so much that the plane could not participate in doing what it's supposed to do when
Yeah.
you're landing. The engine is shut off, you're just sort of coasting. Um, and by letting go a little bit of that control, the plane was participating with you in making it a very smooth landing. And I heard that. And after that lesson, I got in my car. My office was about 45 minutes away from the airport. And the whole time I'm thinking, how many times have I done that in
Yep.
my life where I am wanting so much to control what is happening that I'm not even letting God participate
Yeah.
in in assisting, in participating in what needs to happen, being in flow, being present, being I'm worried, anxious about tomorrow or worried about tomorrow and anxious about yesterday.
Yeah.
And it was a huge lesson. It was almost like a catalyst moment, Vera,
Mhm.
where I just started to go back and I started to re-examine everything that I was white knuckling in my life.
Yeah.
From my marriage to the way I was raising my kids to the way the house had to be to certain sort of restrictions that I had put on myself that weren't put there by anyone but me. It was maybe my projection of what I thought culturally was acceptable, what I thought from a society perspective was expected as a mom based on who, as a wife based on who. So that was a huge, and thank you for letting me share that because I love that story. But that was a huge,
Yeah.
um, just a huge moment for me because I think it really taught me to just look at things, and that helped a lot in helping me re-examine the, oh no, I can't say yes to this. And it's like,
Yeah.
why the hell not? You know? And no, I can't do this and I can't go, and why would I be learning how to fly and jump out of a perfectly good plane? And
Yeah.
and it's like, why not? You know? So that was
I think
another
that
huge,
the
again.
need of control is stopping us from so many things, like the adventure that you try to encourage people to take, because we believe we have to have it all under control, which is impossible. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's once I learned to differentiate, because we are all like that, I think,
yeah.
naturally. We just want to control things, and that's kind of like security. Like, if I control this, no, you can't control the outcome anyway.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
control other people. You can't control what happened next 10 minutes,
Hmm.
and it's once you learn that, and this why it hits so much for me, because I realized once you learn that to let go, there are certain things that are under your control, and that's usually here in between your
Hmm.
two ears,
Yeah.
and everything else is happening whether you like it or
Hmm.
not, and you either go with it or you go against it, and against it creates tensions. And
Yeah,
just like you're white knuckling that thing, it was
yeah.
it was actually putting you in danger, because you were going against the natural functions of the plane and
Exactly.
in your fear. So it's just such a great, that's why I remember it so much, because it's like, oh my God, this makes all the sense in the world. That's what we
Yeah,
are doing all the time. We
yeah,
want to control everything. And whether it's thinking that we can do it the best, or we
yeah,
can count on other people, it's so ridiculous. And we
yeah.
we stab ourselves in the foot.
Yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely, Vera. And listen, and then it makes it no fun. Because
Yeah.
right now, like I said, I'll be 58 this year, but I can't even imagine as a kid. I would have never been able to imagine that this was the life that God had in store for me. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but you know what? I'm enjoying every minute of it, and that's what we need to do. But the enjoying of it came when it all became about the attitude. How am I going
Yeah.
to look at this? Everything is working for me instead of against me. And if something I wanted didn't happen, it's for my own good. I don't see it now, but just wait a few years.
Exactly. It always
Yeah,
turned out that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's I'm loving
I
this,
love
because
that.
this is even when you said, when your ex-husband asked you when you're gonna be done traveling, and you said, when I'm done, it's just it doesn't belong to anybody to make that decision for me. It's
Yeah,
it's what we allow ourselves to do, and what we allow others to put as a
yeah,
borders for us. We
yes,
do it all the
yes.
time. What
Yeah,
would people say? What would my kids say? What would
yeah.
whatever, whoever, who they will say something anyway.
Anyway,
You know,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. Go out there and do your thing because they're the people that are your people that love you are not going to be anything but cheering for you behind your
they will
back.
be really inspired by it too.
Exactly.
You know,
So it just really does. And I think Vera, the older we get, the more we loosen the grip on that, but we really do waste a lot of time worrying about what people think.
yeah,
And that's just it's a joy sucker. And
yeah,
I always say I want to live to be 100 and in good shape, good shape enough to jump out of planes and still climb
yeah,
mountains. But I know that at this age, I I care a lot more than I'm going to care at 88, right? And even less than I'm going to care at 100. So I'm super looking forward to that. Like I love aging. People talk about, and I just want to age so like my number catches up to my wrinkles because I'm out there having fun and I don't mind the wrinkles. I love the
Yeah.
wrinkles because I've earned each one. But life is all about learning and growing constantly. I hope people say, "Oh, you've arrived." I go, "I never want to arrive. I want to continuously be either raising the bar so that I'm never there." Um, so I really can't wait for 60 to be honest.
I just remember one little thing that you did recently that I would never in million years guess. And I mean, guys, she wrote books, she taught people, she was jumping out of planes, she was piloting the planes. Like there's nothing stopping this woman. Well, there is one situation that is really, really uncomfortable and it could be dangerous, and that's to make people laugh. And to be deciding in certain point of your life, and again something that Berta never did before, she decided to try her stand-up comedian chances. And I knew she will be brilliant because I have heard her speak before and I know her personality, but still it's intimidating because even famous comedians will tell you it's one of the scariest things because you don't know what audience will respond to. You don't know how they receive you. There's so much unknown. And back to that control. You can't control anything. What you
Mhm.
find funny yourself may absolutely not land with people. And you killed it too. What brought you to that idea?
Thank you. Um, uh, you know what's funny, Vera? I wanted to actually my son when he was 14, and my kids are very, very funny. When he was 14, he wanted to take a stand-up comedy class. So the improv in Fort Lauderdale was doing classes. I didn't know it was an adult-only class, so I called, signed him up, and the guy's like, "You keep talking about your son. How old is your son?" And I said, "He's 14." And he
Oh,
goes, "Listen. This is an adult class. They're going to be speaking very adult, mature content." And I said, "Listen, I can promise you, he's my son. Okay, I curse like a sailor. I said, I can promise you that my son will have words there that he's going to teach your comedians." So he goes, "Well, listen, don't pay, let him come. And then if he's okay, if he survives the first class, then you can pay and he can keep coming." So of course, drop him off. It's like a 3-hour class. When I go pick him up, I go, "How'd it go?" He says, "Oh, I got a nickname." And I said, "You got a nickname on your first day?" I go, "What is it?" And he goes, "They call me Hellboy or
help.
Devil Boy or something like that." And I'm like, "What did you have to do to earn a nickname like Devil Boy?" And he goes, "Mom, what happens at the improv stays at the improv," right? So he's like 14. So fast forward, I moved to Orlando. We're having a conversation one day and he goes, "Mom, SAC does stand-up comedy classes. And I said, because I wanted to do something to incorporate more humor into my speaking for when I'm doing corporate speaking engagements, whatever. So I just went and took the class just out of curiosity. I thought it was going to be a lot more writing. And I had a blast, met a bunch of really, really great people. We did the showcase. It was hysterical. I got to be myself and,
Yeah.
potty mouth my way through 5 minute set and just had so much fun. And Vera, what I found was that the people in that space are really heart-centered, just good, supportive,
Mm.
amazing people. So I took that class. They didn't have the next level, but I found Funny Bone, which was the improv in Orlando. They had another class. I went there, met another group. We're all friends now. And just I'm having a blast with it.
Yeah.
It's of course it's nerve-wracking because you go and you have to do open mics and you don't know what's gonna land. But you know what? I'm not afraid of failing and I'm not afraid of bombing. So I'm just going and
Yeah.
having a good time. And if they're not laughing, I guarantee you I'm gonna be laughing at myself. So it's okay. But yes, super fun. Thank you for that question.
I know it's part of your charm because by your nature, you don't give a damn how, what other people thinks or it's just you don't care to even be put in situation that may not be perfect because
Right.
you don't care. And it's that freeing attitude. It was like, I'm just gonna try it. And let me tell you, you were funny when I first heard you talking, and you have that sense of humor, and we take ourselves so seriously, all of us, me included, too much. And that's a good reason what you just told me, because I was like, yeah, I need to learn that too. I need to lighten up, and I need to lighten up my approach when I talk about things. Because so often we just get, like all twisted into what it's just
Mhm.
such a serious message that we want to put across, and it's not landing. So it's the one of the reason why I remember that story about your landing a plane so clearly, because it landed. It
Mm.
made a point. It wasn't just the story. It's just that's the reason why you said the story. We have these moments in life that we sometimes, looking back, find that lesson in it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
like you said, when you are in a really bad situation, it always turns out that it was the best thing that could have happened to you, because it led to other situations
Yeah.
or other people or other opportunities or whatever it
Mhm.
is. But it never looks like it when you are in it, of course.
Yeah, yeah. It always kind of sucks when you're in it, right, Vera? But I think that what happens is that we're able to stretch and flex certain muscles that we haven't had to use before. Um, the divorce was really hard because we were so close, and I didn't think he was happy, and I wanted him to be happy.
Yeah.
And I still want him to be happy. I mean, that's my goal, is for him to be happy, but it's not up to me, right? Everybody has to create their own happiness, as we said. And I think what happens, Vera, is that as we continue to stretch the boundaries of our comfort zone, our the way that we think, our cultural, norms and blocks that we have, um, we just learn to have fun. We just learn, and I think one of the things that why we hit it off so well, is that you're so authentic. You're just Vera. What you see is what you get. We love you because of your authenticity, because you're real, because you're heart-centered and service-centered. Um, and that's exactly the way that we need to be, Vera. We
Yeah.
we don't want to have to pretend to be something else. The some of the most beautiful things about us are what's perfectly imperfect,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I think we have this notion that it has to look good, and I posted, a couple of months ago, I started playing pickleball, like an old lady, and I signed up for a tournament. I sucked. Like there were 8 teams. I got seventh place only because the eighth people dropped out because they had lost, But and I went with my cousin's husband, he is an amazing player. If he had played by himself, he would have won if I wasn't there. But you know what? We had so much fun doing it.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know why I signed up? Because I wanted to see what it was like. And I was not ready, but I wasn't afraid to fail.
Mhm.
It's just not
Yeah.
a thing. So I think if we can adopt that attitude of not being afraid to fail and just go to fail and see what happens. See how much you enjoy the process. So this gentleman that I used to work with, texted me, and he goes, "You're doing stand-up comedy now? Are you now doing stand-up comedy?" So they think it's like, oh, she must not be coaching anymore. She must not be speaking. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not an or person. I am an ant. Everything that I am doing, I am adding. You exercise a new muscle, and if you like it, you keep flexing it, and if you don't, you move on to something else. But at least I'm not gonna get to heaven saying, I really wish I would have tried that. I don't know.
So
But
how do you sell that sense of adventure and epic new you to somebody who feel that they are accomplished, and they may be feeling like maybe your husband at some point felt like, I have done everything, I have sacrificed my life to my career and my family, and I just want to be left alone. What would wake up that sense of adventure in them? What can you do for them to bring their mindset to whole, like different dimension?
And I think that's a great question, Vera. And I think what's funny is, and you and I have talked about this, we're not really selling anything. We're just here, we're adding value and we're providing, and we're a space for you to do it if you want to do it. I think there's a lot of rigidity in those people who think that they've done it all and that's it. They're stuck and this is the way it is, and then they're going to retire at 62 or 67 or whatever the age is now, and they're going to coast, and a lot of times they get sick or something happens,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Um, but I know that the people that have the yearning, like I had the yearning, like just this sense of, oh yeah, something is missing. Something is missing, and I just don't want to leave any stone unturned while I'm here. Because I don't know if I could be dead tomorrow. And I always tell people, if I die tomorrow, don't cry for me, because I've done it all twice and taken pictures. So don't feel bad. Um, but I think it's just like you just show and tell, right? This is what it is. This is what I'm doing. This is what if this resonates with you, because I really don't want to work with people that have to be sold on this.
Yeah.
I want to, like you said, Vera, you said earlier, and I love that you've been so diligent in your business and powerful in your business, that everything is inbound now, right? Like the people are coming to you because you've done the work and laid the foundation, a beautiful foundation of service, which I commend you for. And you know what? I don't want to work with a lot of people. I want to work with those few that are really going to get it, that they're really ready. And one of the things that I don't do long coaching programs anymore. I do a 30-day intensive with this new Your Epic Next that I'm doing, but we're gonna go hard. We're gonna go every day, and there's gonna be accountability, loving accountability, but tough accountability, because I can be an a-hole when it comes to accountability. But in the most loving way. And I think accountability, self-accountability is courage. I think peer accountability is love. And I won't take on anyone who doesn't believe in themselves enough to do it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the beauty of it. There are a lot of people are telling me, hey, I'm going to send this guy your way. He's in the financial industry. He's 62, and he's at that age where he feels like he wants to do something more. And I'm like, let's talk. I just can't sell.
You need to feel them, right? You need to
Oof.
feel
Listen,
where they
people
are.
say, oh, yeah, they're gonna call you for an interview, and I'm like, this sounds really cocky, Vera, but I am interviewing my clients. I am very protective of my energy,
Yeah.
very protective of my energy for my clients, for my grandkids. I want to have time to play with them. I still travel a lot. I want to have time to, I calendar all my vacation. I'm doing a cruise a month for the last 7 months. Because I want to eventually, retire on a cruise ship, and I got to see what that feels like.
Oh.
Um, so,
I have never
so
been.
what?
I have never
Oh
been on a
no,
cruise ship.
no, 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 no. We have
I
to
have
go.
never been.
No, listen, Vera, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do a girls' cruise. We're gonna do it. Listen. It's just so much fun. And you're in Florida, Vera.
I know. Yeah.
No, we gotta do it. We're gonna plan one.
Yeah.
But so it really is just, listen, you want to come play, I'm here. You wanna really get to that next level, I'm here. Um, but like you said, you've reached a point where we just, I don't want to have to work that hard. I just want to have fun with people. I want to enjoy people realizing the awesomeness in themselves, because it's very easy for me to see it. Um, and when you can open them up to see it for themselves, to me, that is the most rewarding, amazing experience that I can have as not just as a coach, but as a human. When there's like this, and I use this example all the time. You know how there's people that can walk into a dilapidated house and say that they're going to change a wall here and the kitchen can go here, and I don't have that. I buy new construction because I want to pick where everything is going to go, and I want to walk in and everything is done. Um, but I'm really good at doing that with people. I can't do it in a house. But man, when I start a conversation with somebody who gets it, and I'm already seeing that masterpiece in them way before, and I can tell that they haven't seen it, I take it very personally to start helping them chip away at what doesn't belong. And when they see it for themselves, man, Vera, like there is no stopping them.
Yeah.
But we're not putting ourselves in situations where the people around us are are opening that part of us because we're all in the same comfort zone and nobody wants
Yes.
you to leave the group. And it's not an intentional cage, but it becomes sort of like a cage.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And
yeah.
that's probably part of the reasons why you made that life-changing decision to put yourself in a different space for what you wanted to do, because the support wasn't there and you didn't need to, not that you were asking for permission, but you didn't need to have that energy around you and guilt, like you said, because
Mhm. Yeah.
obviously that cliche that you become the average
Five
of
people.
5 people you are surrounded by, it's
Yeah.
absolutely true. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
let me tell you something. I have been in coaching industry for a while. I
Mhm.
have never met someone like you. I didn't. And we met, and if you want to hear the story, go back to the episode 3 and listen to it, because I was basically stalking her on social media until she agreed to have a lunch with me.
I
But
loved
it's
it.
just, you did one video that absolutely touched my heart, and I knew I need you in my life. And it's not
Mhm.
like we are besties and we see each other every other week. Absolutely not. But I know when that phone rings, I know who you are. I know what you mean to me. And I
Yeah.
know how I became a better person because of you. And
And same for me, Vera.
you were kind enough to introduce me to plenty of people that have
Mhm.
been touched by you as well.
Mhm.
And everybody has been touched the same way. You have that gift to elevate something in people they don't know they have. What you just said.
Mhm.
Everybody's open book, and they don't want to see the talents, or the fear is holding them back, or they feel they accomplished what they were meant to accomplish. But there
Mhm.
is something missing, and you know that. And I'm sure you know Brandon Bouchard. I
Yes.
follow
Yes.
his teaching for years.
Mhm.
And he says, at the end of your days, can you look back and say, did I laugh? Did I live? And did I make a difference?
Yeah.
There's big
Yeah.
difference in that achieving goal or professional goal, or making all
Yeah.
the money in the world, or having the best car, or whatever it is for you. But this cuts deep.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're going with your new epic program.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you,
guessing.
Vera. Yeah. Thank you for that. And I think that's why we hit it off right away. I think we became besties at that lunch, and it was like, you were my person, and
Yeah.
we were gonna be riding this wave together. Because I think, when you find, and I think I saw something on Facebook the other day that when two givers come together, it's like this whole, spark. And I think that's you just have such a giving heart. And again, coming from a place of authenticity, and you're here to serve, and I just love you.
Oh my gosh, that's so mutual. Absolutely mutual. And it's been privilege to have you in my life, really, because you came to it, and I didn't know it then,
Mhm.
but a few years later it proved that you came to my life in the best possible moment when I needed somebody like that.
Mhm.
Because I have been on the receiving end with friends that we go back lifetime, and I realized I was always there to listen to their mess and complaints and everything that goes wrong in there. I'm being there to be their shoulder to cry on and everything. I realized I hardly had maybe 2, 3 people around me that would lift me up. And it was dragging me down. Eventually, at some point, I started cutting those chains myself, because I was like,
Mhm.
I can't do this anymore. I can't just be there listening to complaints all the time when
Yeah.
you demonstrated that there's nothing you want to do about it. And
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
and I, when you start studying the personal development and coaching and all these things, and you went through extensive coaching
Mhm.
and learning, and we constantly learn new things. It's that hunger for knowing more, becoming better person. And I think not everybody has it. And I just, at some point, I couldn't be in the same room with all the complainers that don't want to do anything, because it wraps on you. I wanted to be where I want to go. I wanted to be surrounded by people that show me that it's possible, because I needed that encouragement at the beginning so much, and I still do. And so even one person can make a huge difference in life. And you were that one person for me, whether you know
Thank you,
it or
Vera.
not, whether you
Thank you,
like
Vera.
it or not.
I love it. I love it. And Vera, one other thing, just because you touched on it, and I think that this took me a long time to come to grips with, the whole being there for everyone. It's not that we're either a giver or a receiver. I know a lot of people that go through life with catcher's mitts on both hands, right? And I feel like people like you are always pitching. And what happens, Vera, and I noticed this, probably 6 or 7 years ago, is that when you're always on that giving end, people think you don't need anything.
Yeah.
And we ourselves almost forget how to receive. It's almost like we forget how to do it. We're so in giving mode that even if somebody asks you if they can help you, or if they can do anything, you're just like, not really, because you've heard, what other people are going through, and you're like, shit, my stuff isn't that bad. But I've had to teach myself how to learn to receive. I've had to set really good boundaries, even with family members, Vera.
Yeah.
And boundaries are, there's a grief period when you have to set a hard boundary, because you're losing not only that relationship, but this person that was a part of your entire life, in some situations.
Yeah.
So you grieve the process, but on the other side of it, it's an exercise in self-love. And it's not that, these people know that if they come to me, they need a kidney, come on over.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to talk to you every day. I may not even talk to you for a year. And it's not that I won't talk to you. You call me, I'll pick up, but I'm not going to purposely put myself in that line of fire anymore.
Yes.
And it's a huge exercise in self-love, Vera, which we're not used
And
to
self-respect.
practicing. And self-respect.
Yeah.
And I think that also adds to the muscles that we're flexing out of our comfort zone, the happiness factor. I didn't know how much some of these people were weighing me down until I haven't had them around all the time. And I'm like, man, I have so much peace right now. And again, I learned how to love from a distance. I pray for it from a distance, but I don't have to be there. I don't have to put myself in that line of fire to still be an advocate for them from a distance.
That's your famous sentence you said to me before, that you cannot pour from empty cup. And we as women especially feel like we have to take care of everybody else. And it's really true that once you do that, yes, you may feel good about yourself that you are there for everybody, but it's impossible to improve their life fully when you are falling apart, because at the end of the day, you feel like you gave everything and you have nothing for yourself. And how could you be there for somebody if you are 5% of what you could have been?
Yeah. And I realized it took me forever, Vera, but I realized that if I'm not optimal, like I become like I have had to master self-love. And the 2 years that I spent by myself in Tennessee were really good for me. I did the work. I was journaling and coaching and therapy. I mean, I was doing it all. But I really needed to get to the root of a lot of the things that maybe I hadn't addressed even from childhood. And I got to know myself and be with myself in a way that I'm like obsessed with myself now. And I know that sounds horrible, but I know that makes me the best mother, the best grandmother, even the best ex-wife that I can be, the best cousin, the best friend, the best everything. But I'm like, and I don't let anybody pick on me. I defend me like I would defend my kids. I defend my energy. I protect my energy. And I love my people. But you know what? If you're not good for me, I don't have to be around you. I can pray for you from a distance. God is everywhere. I don't need to be next to you to be praying for you. And I think, Vera, that was the biggest surprise for me is how much I love myself. But I think we all need to be like that. We all need to be cockily in love with
Yeah.
ourselves,
And it's the
because then
opposite of selfish.
the
It's
opposite.
the opposite of it. People think I'm selfish if I think about myself that way.
Yeah.
But it's really impossible to excel in anything if you
Yeah.
spread yourself so thin that you
Yeah.
are, and plus on top of it, you're worrying about what other people will think.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
completely stops you in your tracks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I believe what you just said is so important because this goes back to relationships, the
Mhm.
family, the dynamics, friendships, business, everything else. Because how we let people treat us is telling them how what we can tolerate and
Yeah.
how what is okay to, it's the boundaries. It's doesn't matter what brings it to your life, what decision you make that bring that need in your life, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
absolutely necessary because otherwise we're just reactive all day long
Yeah.
and
All day long.
trying to deal with somebody else's problems, consuming politics, consuming all this,
Mhm.
making ourselves upset about something that you have absolutely no control over.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all these things compile to this mess. Then at the end of the day, you look back at your day. It's like, what have I accomplished? Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
putting
It's so true.
yourself as a priority is so important. And that's what you finally did. It was,
Yeah.
yes, you are most generous giver, but
Mhm.
it's you that needs to be fully authentic and okay and
Yeah.
being able to
Yeah.
give.
Yeah. And we can't give more, like in coaching, we say, we can't take our clients where we haven't been before, right? And I think that's why it's important for us as coaches to continue to stretch ourselves, because that's an honest truth. But I think what happens also, Vera, is that we um we in that self-full, and I love that you said it's not selfish, it really is self-full. I heard that word once, and it's so truth, so true. Even with, when I was going through the divorce, I told my ex-husband, I said, I am 100% responsible for the demise of our marriage.
Mhm.
And he was like, why do you say that, whatever? And I said, because I programmed your ability or everybody's ability not to make me a priority, because I never made me a priority.
Yeah.
So I was able to look back and really take responsibility. And I know that we're in everything that we're doing in every relationship, we are programming how the people will treat us by, like you said, not setting good boundaries and all that, but really by how we treat ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I know, I have a cousin who I love, and we all got married the same year, and we lived nearby. So there was a hurricane that came through Miramar, like in 2004 or something,
Mhm.
and I'm up there on the ladder. We didn't have electricity for 2 weeks, but I'm up on the ladder on the second floor, helping my husband take down the shutters and all this stuff. And she comes by, and she looked like she had just, she's taking a shower with cold water, but she looked like she was dressed to the nines. She's 2 years older than me. And she drove up because she wanted to see how we were doing. And
Mm.
she sees me up there, and she calls me down, and she says, I never want to see you up on a ladder, risking your life again. And I said, what are you talking about? She goes, I don't do it with and I've never done it. If he needs to get up on a ladder and do something, he's got to call another man to help him. He's got to call a neighbor. He's got to call whoever. He's got to, but no, because all these things that you're complaining about, that's why, because you're making it seem like, and let
Yeah.
me tell you, I have never forgotten that. 21 years later, I have never forgotten it. And she taught me a great lesson. I didn't do anything with it at the time, but now in hindsight, I realize, Vera, that we're constantly teaching people how to treat us
Yeah.
by what we're willing to accept, and how we're treating ourselves.
So
So I
true.
love that you mentioned that.
So true. I know you are such a source of wisdoms, and little pearls of wisdoms always come out of any of our conversation. And it's not a posturing. It's really based on experience. And it's so influential when somebody listens to this and they can take just one thing to heart and change that little one thing, and they will be witnessing huge changes in their life. And I know that because, like I said, I met a lot of people that you touched, And
Mhm.
all of them were elevated. All of them kind of relate to me that you told them that they don't dream big enough. And it's that elevation that you do for people that's really out of this world. And I don't know anybody else that can do it as efficiently as you do. And it's not by what you say, it's not by what you preach, it's what you do. And it's what you show, which is so much more powerful.
Well, you're gonna make me cry, but thank you. Thank you for
Oh,
that. And again, I think that's your mirror reflecting back on you, because you know that all that you have in you, and you do it too, and you just recognize it. But I
I'm
appreciate
trying.
you saying that out loud.
I'm trying.
You
You
do.
are, you are a wonderful influence, and it's even with like when I thought of you climbing Kilimanjaro unprepared or jumping out of the plane, and I'm like, I don't know if I need that in my life, but I love your guts.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
I don't have those tendencies.
Those needs, right, right, right.
But you didn't do it to impress someone. You did it because you wanted to prove it to yourself, and that's a big difference. And
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
just love you for it. It's
Thank you.
really what we do and not what we say. And
Yeah,
this always
yeah.
brings guilt to me because I don't always do
Well,
everything that I want to. And
but we're always working on it, Vera. And I think you mentioned powerful women in my lineage. This year, actually, May is going to be 40 years since my grandmother passed away,
hmm,
and I'm still always looking over my shoulder. She was my person, right? To make sure that she's proud of what I was doing. But I'm going to tell you, she was like, given the chance, she would have done all this stuff that I'm doing. So I
wow.
feel like a part of me, she had the cultural and the older generations, and maybe not the financial means, and
Hmm.
definitely not the support to be able to do that. But I think if she were alive now in this generation, she would have been doing all of this. And so it's a big deal for me to stand on those shoulders with a lot of courage, I guess,
Yeah.
is what it is. So
You got infected with it, in
yeah,
your
there you go.
inheritance. But you
I love
brought
it.
it to a whole new level. I'm sure that they would not recognize the
Oh my God.
possibilities. No, it's such a joy to talk to you. I'm always so happy
Yeah.
in your presence, and it's just really, I don't have that courage you have, even though I'm getting better every day. But it's like you feel like it will rub on me a little bit.
You
Yeah.
do have it. I hope you've shared your story as well on the podcast. You do have it. You just take it for granted because you've been doing it all your life
Hmm.
and you don't recognize it. It doesn't seem like anything, but you do have it. You've always had it. You came from a communist country, you know, in your 20s, and started again and dared to, even just that small story. And I know a lot of your other stories, but even that small story of walking into that guy's office not really knowing what to expect, but you did it anyway and you excelled and got to the top of your game. So be careful with the way that you're
Much
talking to
later,
yourself.
37.
Look
Yeah.
at that. Look at
Yeah.
that.
But it's that,
So
that you feel like you are in your prime. And paradoxically, I felt, and that may go back to that like tunnel vision that sometimes we have for our life, that I want to go after this career, and you don't see other opportunities because you are so focused on that one thing that you want to achieve. And it may
yeah,
not be the right thing for you. You never
yeah,
know. But I came
yeah.
to this country. One of the most liberating things at that time for me was I felt like clean book. I had no
I know,
idea which direction to take. I had no
I know.
idea what to pursue because I felt like I can learn anything. And I have done so many different things in life that I really wasn't leaning towards one directive. And
Right, right.
that's why I was open to opportunities that never even crossed my mind. It
Yeah,
was by
yeah,
chance somebody introduced me. And I'm like,
yeah.
why not? And this is what you have now that I need
Oh
to
my gosh.
recover in me. You
Yeah,
know, that attitude. Why not?
yeah.
Who is stopping you? What is stopping you? Why not?
Yeah, And the important thing, Vera, is what you just said, knowing that that's who you are. Because a lot of the soul searching and the things that I did was really going back to who I know I am, and tapping into the reservoir of what I know I have, to get out of the funk, the laziness, the whatever you want to call it, the getting used to this new normal over the last 3 years. But Vera, she's there. It's that's still Vera. It's
Yeah,
just, what do you want to do with it? And have
I
you even
know.
sat down to examine what you want it to look like? Because you got it. I see you working out and lifting weights, and I'm like, what? She's like Iron Woman over there.
Yeah, that was
So
something that I've never done in my life, which is,
yeah, you
yeah.
know?
And but the things what we talked about before, with you on the ladder helping your man, um, I'm not sure I completely agree with that, and I get the point because
Yeah.
when my husband passed, I realized the little things that was I didn't worry about it because that was his thing, that he would take
Mhm.
care of that. He would take care of
Right.
that. And suddenly it was such a missing part. I felt freaking accomplishment when I figured out something that he would normally take care of and
Yeah.
looked on YouTube video how to change the freaking ball in my car or something.
Yes.
I felt such a like
Yeah.
sense of accomplishment for the little
Yeah.
stupid things that I have
Yeah. I
never
agree
touched
with you.
before. So it's two ways. Like you
Yeah.
can,
Yeah. There's two ways to look at it. I
uh,
think her mentality was, if you don't have to do it, don't do it.
yes, yes.
But yeah, and I think there's a lot of empowerment in that, Vera, especially as women. Like I said, when I was, RVing all over for that year,
Mhm.
I had to learn how to do plumbing and
Yeah,
and fix things, and it's very empowering. I had, my own tool set, and I didn't want to have to do it, but it
yeah.
was great to learn how to do it. And God just
It is
it's just God.
stretching as well. It is
Listen, it's
stretching.
and he's going to stretch us as far as we need to go to get us to the next level, and then he'll stretch us again as far as we need to go. And as long as the mindset is right to understand that that's where it's coming from and it's for our own good, I think it's a beautiful thing. But I love you so much, and I'm so grateful for you, for this conversation, and for you being who you are, and for being my friend. And
Absolutely. I'm blessed to be your
amazing.
friend and
Yeah.
I'm blessed to have you in my life. I really mean it sincerely. And when you announced that new Epic Next, I knew that I want you here to talk about it and so the right people can hear it and right people can reach out to you because it's really it brings you to new levels when you know someone like that and when you let her touch your life and lift you up like she did for so many people before. And I would like to extend the invitation. Of course, please reach out if Berta resonate with you, and I'm sure she will. I'll put all the contact information in the show notes. But also, I want to mention if you just want to start learning about what she stands for and what she is, she's also author of several books. Some of them are available on her website, which is the yourepicnext.com, I believe.
Yeah.
But so you can buy it there. I'm not sure if they are on Amazon or anywhere. Do you
Yeah,
know?
they're on Amazon.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
One of them is it's called Becoming Competition Proof. It's stand out and overcome competition through generosity, service, and added value. That's exactly what she lived.
Mhm.
The other book that I have and read and did my work with is called The Why is the Way, a manifesto for the optimistic realist that comes with its own workbook. So you can start small, you can start working on your own limiting beliefs by yourself and reach out when you're ready. And then she wrote, which I didn't even know, Lessons from the Roof of Africa, a journey of self-discovery through the power of giving, co-authored with Jorge, which is your son, right?
My son, yeah.
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 And Chloe Climbs for Sippy, which is the adventures of Chloe Bella, which is based on your granddaughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you co-wrote it with Jocelyn, Jorge, and Berta,
Yeah.
and illustrated by Ignacio. I don't know
Yeah,
Ignacio.
he's a great illustrator that we found out of California, and he was able to bring. So what we did, that story is the Lessons from the Roof of Africa was about the climb, for Sipao, who was my sponsor child. And then we had always had a dream of writing a children's book. So we
Yeah.
took the story as if Chloe Bell did climb the mountain, and I do a lot of career days in schools and donate those to the libraries of the schools and give them out to the students. So it's a great way to just, introduce mission work and generosity to the kids. So it's just a lot of fun. And Vera, I'm happy to share with you, if you want to share it with your listeners, the workbook of the Why is the Way. I turned it into a journal.
Okay.
It's a PDF. I'm happy to share it with you, and you can share it with your
Absolutely.
listeners. And it's just 130 pages of like, let's get in there, get our hands dirty,
Yeah.
bring it out to play,
And
and move on. So
it guides you what you need to go through to achieve some next level. Maybe not
right.
epic right away, but to get you
Yeah.
out of that comfort zone, that out of the stories that we tell ourselves, and out of all that reasons that we think we have
Yes.
for not moving forward. And
Amen.
I was just looking at your website, and I haven't seen it for a while. And I'm like, because I knew about the two books that you wrote before, and I'm like, oh my God, she did it again. And now, like, there's a list of books, and I'm like, okay, she's showing you, why the hell not?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that, Vera.
No, absolutely. Thank you for your time. You've been so generous. I know how busy you are, so I really appreciate it. And I want everybody know about you. I want everybody know that you are there. If they are ready to challenge themselves, they will
Mhm.
need a good guide that have done it and that is not afraid of anything. And that's Berta Medina. I
Thank
love
you, Vera. Thank you so much. I love you too. And thank you for putting this together. Super grateful to be here with
absolutely.
you.
Thank
All
you.
right, my friend.